Live from the Springfield Civic Auditorium, it's
The Cage Fighting 144th.
episode spectacular.
Hello, I'm Troy McClure.
Good morning, good afternoon, good evening to wherever you may be listening to this podcast. It is your main man, Andy Gillard here. Hope you're all keeping well right now. This week we're here to look back at the genesis of the question cast. We're each going to pick some of our favourite questions and some of the favourite questions that we've asked on this one. My question will be second. It is the one I asked about our favourite trilogies. But really, where else should we start than the first question that was asked on this podcast? And that is over to you, Matthew.
Yep, I would like to know, guys, what is your film guilty pleasure, please? Let's go with Stu.
Why not? Well, it's a film that stars, well, I say stars. There's certain people in this film that you think, oh, what could this possibly be? So, in this film, feature Isaac Hayes, Buzz Aldrin, Niki Lauda, Jennifer Rush, Shari Belafonte, Simon Shepherd, and Roger Moore. And it is, of course, made in 1990, called Fire, Ice and Dynamite. And just the astounded look on your face.
Yeah.
This is a film that's no one's ever heard of. It's Simon Shepherd from Peak Practice, the hit 90s ITV drama. He's pretty much the star. Roger Moore is in it quite a bit. It's basically Wacky Races, but live action.
Right,
Oh,
okay.
And if you can find a widescreen version, great. But every time I've had it, it's in 4:3. And it was made in 1990.
What was it called again? Fire what?
Fire, Ice and Dynamite.
Okay, right.
And I can't even remember. I think me and MMA Goldie, I think we found it in the game bargain bucket in game. It was just in there. It was the only film in there. And I thought, why on earth is this in? Oh, it's got Roger Moore in. It's got to be good. And again, IMDb 4.0, 899 reviews.
Wow.
I mean, that's higher than some modern day blockbusters. That's ridiculous.
Yeah, so by Willie Bogner, whoever that is.
Is it kind of like that? You remember the film Rat Race? That
It's
sounds like a kind of similar concept to that, is it?
Very similar to Rat Race.
Yeah, I like
but
that film as well.
Rat Race was based on something else as well. Well, there's the original one there.
Yeah.
But yeah, this is the billionaire. The billionaire dies, and he sets up this thing to whoever wins the race wins his money. That's the premise of it all. And it's probably the film that no one's ever heard of. No one should like it. It's probably not great, but it's almost like every Christmas I watch it because it's got snow in it. It's not a Christmas film. It's not a Thanksgiving film. It's wintry, and you think, oh, it gets you in the mood for Christmas. And the incredible levels of high camp in this one. Incredible levels. But if you can find it, give it a check. But it's one of them where you won't forget it once you've seen it. That's guaranteed.
Well, that one's made it onto my list already.
Absolutely. Andy, what about yourself, mate? What's your guilty pleasure, film-wise?
I was thinking about this because I don't have any shame when it comes to films. I like stuff that's great, stuff that's terrible, and everything in between. But I was thinking about actors that are associated with shit, for want of a better word. I thought, well, you know what? I quite like Statham. I'm a big fan of Jason Statham. He does a lot of very lowbrow. I love the Crank films. They're just great fun. I thought, well, you know what? Actually, big fan of The Rock's early stuff, The Scorpion King, which gets shat on constantly, but I enjoyed that. And then also I thought, throw in Vin Diesel, who's another guy who does terrible things, but I really enjoyed Bloodshot. But those three guys, you've got the Fast and Furious. Right there.
Knew this was coming.
Yeah, that is my guilty pleasure. Is just apart from the second one, which might be the worst film I've ever seen, and not even in a so bad it's good way, just terrible, terrible movie. But yeah, the rest are great fun. Once you get to probably about the fifth one, and it stops just being about racing, quarter of a mile down the road, and they become action films, they're brilliant. But you do realise once you get to that point and they're doing a heist in Brazil, in a country they've never ever been to, but they've hacked into the system and they're changing all of the road traffic lights so they can get away. But then you remember that 2 films ago, they were selling TV, DVD combos out the back of his truck. And how the hell have we got to this point? It is bananas, but I love Fast and Furious. The other film we wanted to give a mention to, it's a film called Sleepaway Camp. Don't know if you've ever seen that one.
No.
This was going to be my obscure one. This was going to be my Fire, Ice and Dynamite. So it's an 80s film, horror film, where it's set at this place called Sleepaway Camp. So it's not a very original title. But you find out that, so these kids start dying. They keep getting murdered, and you find out that who kills them, and it's the most ridiculous twist I have ever seen to any film. It's up there with the worst of M. Night Shyamalan's twist. All you know about the killer all the way through is that it's got male chromosomes in the blood trace. I don't know how they figured that out. They're on a fucking camp. There's no way they're going to have been able to do DNA tests to figure this out. But that's all you know about the killer all the way through, and then you find out who the killer is at the end, and it's incredible. I thoroughly recommend it. I've not seen any of the sequels, so I can't speak to them. But the first Sleepaway Camp is well worth your 90 minutes. How about yourself, Matt? What are you guilty of?
I want to preface this with we're in an enlightened time now, and for all the right reasons, we're questioning things that we may have previously thought were acceptable, or that we're having a deeper think into things. So one question that I know is coming later has had a dramatic change, and anybody that's heard me on the Fancast will know my favourite film of all time was Forrest Gump, which I'm now moving into a guilty pleasure. And the reason for that is I think I look back on Forrest Gump, and when I watch it, it still entertains me. I still find it like quite a sweet tale when I don't look at it too much of a deep dive, and I think to myself it's funny, and I look at it as exactly what that. But then when you do a deeper dive into it, there are themes that are massively outdated in it now. There are questionable elements to it that are starting to make me feel a little uncomfortable the more and more I think about it. But it is a guilty pleasure in the fact that I still find entertainment in it, and I still think, and me and Andy will hammer this point out a lot, that I really rate Tom Hanks in the film. But it's a guilty pleasure in that I know there are some elements to it that are now outdated and probably wouldn't be as acceptable nowadays. But I do get a kick out of it, and I do enjoy the film. But we're going to use this podcast as a cleansing for me to grow. So that's why that film has been moved into that category on this occasion.
I think with things like that, though, I think we just, I wouldn't say it's a guilty pleasure. It's just you enjoyed the film when you watch. If you watch the film now with the way things are, and you liked it now, then you got to think, well, okay. But you liked it in a more innocent time.
Yeah,
so
no, I understand.
I'd take it like that. That film, I know people who absolutely despise that film, and they can't stand it whatsoever.
Yeah, we're talking to one of them.
Yeah.
And how it won that many, who knows? But it's fine. It's fine. But it's I wouldn't worry too much about its issues.
It's just aged quite badly. I think we as society have moved on for the better in some respects, and it's sort of shown up. It's highlighted the issues around that film, I think. But yeah, I'm not sure I'd say it would be a guilty pleasure, but I sort of get where you're coming from with that one, Matt. Yeah. So, fellas, my question, after last week when we discovered the existence of the Beige Volvo trilogy, I was wondering, what is the greatest trilogy of all time? Matt, would you like to start the ball rolling on that one?
Okay. Well, I don't want to steal Stu's thunder here or anything, so I feel he might pick this. So I've gone a little different, and instead of greatest as in kind of critically acclaimed, one trilogy that I really enjoy is actually the Lecter trilogy, as in Hannibal Lecter, Silence of the Lambs, Hannibal, and Red Dragon. Hannibal was a bit of a disappointment on the really creepy and tension, suspenseful Silence of the Lambs, but Red Dragon was a real return to form, the prequel to all of this going on. I just really like Anthony Hopkins. Is an actor that I really haven't invested enough time into. I haven't seen a lot of his work, but in those films he just creates such an entertaining villain, or you could even describe as an anti-hero, because you enjoy watching him be this sadistic cannibal. And I think the films are just put together really, really nicely, and based on actually a question that we've already discovered, turned into a really excellent program as well, which is worth a lot of people's time. So for purely entertainment's purpose, I'm going with the Lecter trilogy, because they're horror, sci-fi, anything dark and morbid is my wheelhouse. So that's what I'm going for. Obviously, there are bigger, more critically acclaimed trilogies, but for something that really ticks all the boxes for me, it's really up there.
Yeah, and there's also another Westworld actor in there, isn't there?
Of course,
So
it's
a running theme.
Yeah, of course.
Yeah,
exactly.
Have you ever seen the original Red Dragon, Manhunter?
No. I know it exists, but I haven't seen it, so I can't compare it. But I understand. I think they're worldly different from what I read.
Yeah, I prefer Manhunter, to be fair. Obviously, it's not a different actor as well, and it is, like you said, a completely different vibe and from a different time. Yeah. But if you can find it, it's going to be very obscure to get hold of. If you find it on DVD somewhere, then I'd definitely give it a chance.
Yeah, I will do, because I want to compare the two, to be fair.
So what about yourself, Stu? What's your go-to trilogy?
Well, I'm amazed that Matt didn't go for it, really, because obviously Blade is the answer.
That is not what I was expecting to come from you.
No, it wasn't at all.
No, there's a few honourable mentions. There's Blade, Naked Gun as well.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Austin Powers for the silly ones, but obviously Lord of the Rings, hands down, no question whatsoever. I know you're playing with the rules now because of the Hobbit being its own thing and the connecting world and whatever, but as a trilogy of films made together, you can't. I suppose you could if you really wanted to watch just one of them. You'd be a bit mad, but to watch them as a whole package, which you have to really do, it's exceptional. You can't really beat it for me. It's just we're in context. Before they came out, I wasn't a fantasy dragons kind of person whatsoever. I paid no attention to any of that nonsense. I was always sci-fi and Star Wars and that way inclined. I never got into that kind of stuff whatsoever. But me and Dean went to watch that film every Christmas, and then you'd buy the extended DVD at the start of December, watch that, and then go to the cinema straight after for 3 years in a row, and it was just incredible. And I for the same reason what we talked about earlier about watching films over and over again and keeping them special, I haven't watched it for 2 years because I know them so well, and like when we watched Face Off and I remembered every line, I don't want that to happen with Lord of the Rings, so I've kind of give myself a break from it intentionally. So I'll probably go back to it this year because I mean, even just thinking about it, I miss it. It's just sitting over there. But yeah, Lord of the Rings, hands down, no question whatsoever for me.
So would you take the Lord of the Rings over episodes 4, 5, and 6? Yeah, I would.
Fuck yeah. I thought before Lord of the Rings came out, I'm presuming that's what your answer is going to be because that's the normal answer. But yeah, for me, it's Lord of the Rings over original Star Wars. Yeah.
Okay, I'm quite surprised. Knowing you, I would have thought you'd have gone for a Star Wars answer there. To be perfectly honest. Interesting. So mine, I'm going to give an honourable mention for the third time this week to the Evil Dead trilogy. I just love it. It doesn't get the love it deserves.
Yeah, it's such a wonderful set of films. That first one is genuinely terrifying in parts. The second one is a good old-fashioned horror film, and the third one where they're throwing the comedic elements, and it's a bit of a romp. Yeah, it's a really good trilogy. But that's just my honourable mention. Normally, I would probably go for the Cornetto trilogy, as you both know. For me, it's 2 10s and an 8. I think, those films are just fantastic. But the trilogy I'm going to go for, it's going to take us full circle. And it's the Dark Knight trilogy.
Mhm.
Batman Begins is... I mean, the film starts at a 10. Batman Begins is a fantastic movie that I think is often overlooked because of how great The Dark Knight is. But The Dark Knight's an 11. It's that damn good. And then I think a lot of people do poo-poo the final film, but for me, again, it's such a good film. It's actually a film which has got a storyline of a man who has given everything to the city he loves and he's now broken down, but he's got one last job to do. And it doesn't feel cheesy, which I think a sign-off to a superhero film can do. And for me, it never gets quite to that point. The villains in all 3 films are entirely believable human beings.
Yes, brother.
That's right, yeah. You never look at it and think yes, I know it's based on a comic book character, but at the same time, it's basically a detective who just happens to wear a rubber suit. If he was just in a dirty Mac and it was Columbo, you wouldn't think twice. It's a very similar sort of feel that it's just what he wears that makes him look different to your average, hero. So for me, it would be the Dark Knight trilogy.
Yeah, pretty much grounded in realism is exactly what the tagline of it should be.
Mm.
But I was going to say that there's been no honourable mention for The Godfather.
I think it's just based on there's so many trilogies that its third installment absolutely brutalizes it, and that's where The Godfather is for me, unfortunately.
It's the perfect duology. The third film is just
and funnily, the Matrix for me is the reason why that didn't make it, because the first Matrix film is so up there. It's so new metal, which is the time like the music that I grew up with. It's so new metal it's those big long black trench coats, and it's just everything that encapsulates what I was growing up. The Matrix, loved it, but the third one, and it did nothing for me. And The Godfather, unfortunately, excellent. One thing I wanted to ask you guys: are there any quadrilogies? are there any that actually the fourth film ruins it entirely for you, or really takes away? So mine, for example, would be, I know films have come out since, but there was a massive time jump. Alien and the fourth Alien film, which Resurrection. It was really, it was just awful. Absolutely hated it. Took away. I mean, Alien 3 was a stretch with a dog alien, but it was Alien. It was good enough for me. I liked the idea of it being on like a prison colony planet and all that came around. But the fourth one, it just ruined it for me. So, is there anything that immediately jumps out to you guys, like a film that pushed the franchise too far?
Yeah, I mean, the one film that I refuse to accept exists is The Crystal Skull. Like, the first 3 indie films are fucking brilliant, but the fourth one of the franchise is... I know we mentioned it last time out about the CG of the monkeys and stuff in it, and it's so subpar for that cast and that director that it's an insult to what came before it. So if either of you two had said that your favourite trilogy is the Indiana Jones trilogy, I would have perfectly accepted that, because I just ignore the fourth one. It doesn't exist.
There's so many of them are like that. Like, Stu, what obviously you're massively into Die Hard. Where are you with the latest Die Hard film in comparison to the originals?
The first 2 are superb. They're just, the first 2 are 10s. When there's some years when I prefer Die Harder to the first one. Sometimes, Vengeance is all right. Vengeance is probably 8-ish. Die Hard 4.0, where you're jumping over helicopters and it gets a bit nonsense. And then it should have just been that. Just leave it there. And so the fourth one of that is probably a stretch as well. To be honest, when you bring his son back and all that stuff, and this Die Hard Vendetta game was better than the last film. But yeah, it's just a case of more is not best sometimes. And I know you were going to say with Crystal Skull, that was what I was thinking as well. But there's Superman 4.
See, I think Superman 4 is better than Superman 3. Neither's good, to be honest, but
no,
it just edges it.
Superman 4, it was just throw as much nonsense at the screen as you possibly can do and see what sticks because you've run out of money kind of situation. But I mean, that's what it looked like.
It was cheap as shit, wasn't it? The budget must have just been $0. It was awful.
It's a bit like RoboCop 3 as well. I know
I never saw it.
The first one, excellent. The second one, okay. The third one, where he gets a jetpack and he can fly and he can take his arm off with a gun. And then the fourth one, which is the series, just completely ruins it all. It completely ruins everything. The prime directives, they're called. And it was like a PG daytime Saturday TV. Yeah, exactly.
Good God.
For RoboCop. So he doesn't swear. You don't see any violence or anything like that, and the bloke just looks like he's got cancer rather than being a cyborg. So it's just not very good at all. And it kind of, I think Golly sold me the prime directives for about £5 on DVD. There's 3 of them, 3 films, three extra films that are just one whole box of nonsense.
So Stu, I've got a question for you then. Prime Directive RoboCop or WCW RoboCop?
WCW, because Prime Directives is just so bad.
I'd want a RoboCop that had teamed up with Sting as well. If I was,
absolutely.
You know what? I'd even take the Joe Kinnaman RoboCop over the Prime Directives, and I know that film gets a lot of shit because it should have been called something else other than RoboCop, because it's an all right sci-fi film in its own right, and it's got moments, but it's not RoboCop at all.
So, going on about quadrilogies, where do you stand on the Mad Max foursome? Because obviously I know you've got your first 3, which are obviously Mel Gibson, and then you've got your 4th one, which is Tom Hardy. I think that's possibly that. If that ends now, that has gone out on a high. Those first 3 are fine. They're not bad films, but the 4th one is like twice as good as the next closest one for me.
Fury Road's excellent, isn't it? It really is special. I mean, I think I might have seen one of the original Mad Max years ago, so I can't really compare them to Fury Road. But if Fury Road is a standalone piece, is absolutely excellent. Stu, have you seen them? Are you more a fan of them?
I watched them in the build-up to Fury Road coming out. So I was in the same boat. I hadn't seen them for a long. I mean, I think I watched them when I was a kid. I remember watching the third one with Tina Turner in. I remember watching that when my nan was alive, and she died in '95. So,
still,
if that even works, or if that's some kind of warped memory, I don't know. But yeah, the Fury Road's absolutely excellent. And have you seen the black and white version now?
Not yet. It's something I want to try and find, but I've just not been able to yet.
I'm sure it's on the Blu-ray. It's worth buying just for that. Because that, you could call it as a noir piece. Just doing that to it just works. Yeah. So I agree with you in that one. That's a rare case of the 4th one being better. Oh, another one, Lethal Weapon. Lethal Weapon 4.
Yeah.
It has no right being decent at all after such a long time, and in still not being retired, and being very old to this shit. With Jet Li, the 4th one, it's all right.
It's good fun, isn't it?
Yeah, and that's another one where the series. I know a lot of people like that series. I never watched it, a single bit of it, just because I couldn't get the image of them, the original two, out of my head when I'd be watching it.
Mm.
But yeah, I think that's as foursomes go.
Yeah, there's a lot worse out there. I think what I quite liked, the third one's a bit of a letdown, but the Scream films, I quite enjoyed all four of those. I mean, the third one's watchable. It's not great, but the ones either side, I thought they were really good. Wes Craven at his best at points, I felt.
Well, that defined a generation of like slasher flick, didn't it?
Yeah.
The Scream films. By the time we got to the end of that, I'm concerned it was a little bit of a parody of itself towards the end, but for what they did culturally and how it defined like the 90s kind of slasher film, you can't say a bad word about it, really.
If you're familiar with this podcast, you'll know that Stu sometimes brings the low brow. Slight lack of decorum to some of his drunken antics, maybe, but we do love him. However, on this occasion, on the next clip, he wanted to know what our favourite foreign language films were. And the clip following that, I wanted to reinvent the wheel, and I wanted to ask the gang to remake a film of their choosing. Thanks for checking us out. We love you all. Thank you very much for listening.
Nice and simple this week. What is your favourite foreign language movie? Matthew.
Thank you, Stuart. I think very civilised this evening.
There's a copious amount of Banksy's Amber that I've drank all day today.
Oh, okay. Yeah. Well, after the game earlier, I felt like alcohol might be on the menu. To be fair, but I digress.
It's been on the menu since 12 o'clock. So.
So I was going to originally, but I've talked about it too many times, I think, on the podcast already, go with something like Battle Royale or Life is Beautiful. But I seem to shoehorn those films in at every opportunity, really, when we talk about it. So one film that I want to mention as probably one of my favourite, I haven't watched it recently, and I'm going to watch it on the back of researching it for this, The Lives of Others. I don't know if you've seen that I review. So basically, the story of the East German member of the Stasi monitoring a playwright, basically. So the Gestapo, for want of a better word, monitoring surveillance on citizens to make sure that they are keeping to the communist playbook. Let's put it that way. It's a really, really heart-wrenching film, and a film that shows humanity in the worst of people. But it keeps you on the edge of your seat because the film teases and pulls you in different directions, because you follow the Stasi officer, and he doesn't know. The internal conflict with him is really, really powerful, and you don't know if he's going to turn in the people he's surveying. Is he going to let them get away with it? I don't want to spoil it, because one sentence will ruin this film. It's one of those. Just watch it. It's a really gut-wrenching film that shows the true emotion of a person, even someone as evil as the Nazis or the Stasi. Just watch it. You'll really appreciate it.
Sebastian Koch in this as well, who's been in a lot of things that we've seen. He was in where's he gone now? He's in Homeland as Otto, for people who've watched Homeland.
Yeah, it's it won the Oscar.
And the Danish Girl? Oh, wow.
Yeah, it won the Oscar for foreign film or foreign language film, 2006, I think it was. It's just a really, really excellent film. Not massively rated really that highly in terms of IMDb, but it's 93% on Rotten Tomatoes, audience score of 96%. I think it was I might have got this wrong now. I think it was a 2 million budget with a 77 million return as well. So in terms of a percentage of purely from brass tacks as well, it did fantastic numbers. I want you guys to watch it and get back to me, basically, because I really love it.
Yeah.
It's on my list now, definitely.
As well. Yeah. This list is going to be. I've got a feeling this week is just going to be one where I've seen nothing, and it's all going straight onto the list. So the lives of others. So for myself, I had a few written down. I had Battle Royale on the short list because I expected you to talk about it, to be honest, Matt. Yeah, it's a great film, so no more needs to be said. I would also say Parasite, which finally won the Oscar. Don't need to go into any detail. I'm sure you've heard enough about it. It's an incredible film. I've yet to rewatch it because I'm waiting. I was going to go to the cinema to watch it when it was released in black and white, and then shit kicked off. So obviously that's been on the back burner. So the film I want to put a bit of love to is a film called Roma, and it's a film that should have won the Oscar 12 fucking months ago. It is incredible. So it's set in a time of civil war. Stu's cursing me here because I've obviously stolen his thunder.
Yeah, because I thought I was going to be clever this week. I thought I was going to get something you haven't seen.
It's an Oscar film, of course. I've seen it. Yeah, so it's set in a time of civil unrest within. Is it Cuba? I can't remember off the top of my head the country that it's set. And it's about a cleaner and her life and trials and tribulations. And when the thing happens at the, it is the most devastating, heartbreaking scene I have ever seen. You feel part of it. You feel like you were in the room when it happens, and it's up there with 12 Years a Slave for the impact it had on me at full time. That it was just what an awful, awful world this place can be at times. It's beautiful, and it should have won the Oscar. Was it Alfonso Cuarón, I think, was the director of it, and the fact the Green Book won that year is a fucking travesty. Like, it's up there with the shitty Crash that won the Oscar over Brokeback Mountain. It's appalling that Roma didn't get the love that it deserves. Also, two other quick shout-outs, and both of these go to Guillermo del Toro. Pan's Labyrinth, gorgeous, and El Orfanato, which he produced, which is a Spanish-language horror, and it's gorgeous. Sorry, Stu.
I had three, and I thought, well, there's going to be at least one, and thankfully you ain't mentioning. Yeah, I think Pan's Labyrinth was one of the first ones that I thinking in, when I thought about this question. I thought, what was the first one that I actually paid attention to? Mm. And because it's so fucked up and strange, it doesn't really matter that it's Spanish or whatever in the mystical nonsense of it all. It's just you could watch that without any context of just how visually amazing it is. Pan's Labyrinth, obviously. Yeah,
and it's a grown-up fairy tale, isn't it?
Yeah.
It's stunning. Some of the best visuals I've ever seen in a film as well. Love it.
Well, you wouldn't have got the Hellboy gig, would he, if he hadn't done that?
Very true, very true. And the man with the eyes in his hands.
Yeah.
Like, terrifying. But yeah, awesome.
Yeah, the other one was the one that kind of, again, late to the party that introduced me to wire work, Crouching Tiger, Hidden Dragon.
Okay.
Which, because I wasn't really a part like Asian cinema and all that kind of thing. It was all, oh, this is all bollocks. It's nonsense. And how is this entertainment? And then I can't remember how or who took me to watch this one, but we were sitting there and I thought, this is class. And ever since then, going back into the back catalogue of Asian cinema and all that kind of thing, I've got a proper love from it, from Crouching Tiger. So that's kind of warm place in my heart, so to speak.
Oh, fantastic! I've never seen it. It's been one that's been on the list.
Oh, come on!
And like other films get added, and it's always been fairly low on the priority list. Maybe I should bump it up.
Have you seen Kung Fu Hustle?
Yes.
No.
Good film though. It's not like
good things.
It's no Kung Fu Panda. Let's just put it there.
Whoa there.
That's another one I'm adding to the list. Kung Fu Hustle.
I say Kung Fu Panda.
No, I've seen that one. I quite enjoyed that.
God,
that was
I can't
Jack
remember.
Black, wasn't it?
I remember going to cinema and seeing something really, really like powerful, like a proper thought-provoking film. Can't be that thought-provoking, I can't remember what it was. But like me and my friend had the day to ourselves, and we had those Cineworld Unlimited passes, and we thought, oh, should we just make a day of this? Yeah, we will actually. We'll go see like 2 or 3 films in a row. What's on? Kung Fu Panda 2. Why the fuck not? So then we just went and watched it. Oh man! And another cinema memory just before we move on. I'll never forget walking into the King's Speech right? Late, I might add, which is a faux pas, I know. And the overwhelming smell of talcum powder and those sweets that come in the little tins, with the like not sherbet but like a sugary thing, because it was quite an elderly screening of people, and it just smelt like going to like your grandparents' house. I couldn't believe it. And then my mate Rob, like, so he's your worst enemy, Andy. Instead of like, you take food in a bag, absolutely fine. Like, I've got no issue with that. Instead of taking a big bag of crisps, he took 6 individual bags of crisps.
God. That's just fucking evil.
Sacrilege.
Jesus.
Anyway.
Have either of you ever two walked into the wrong screening before?
Yeah, I have.
I
have, yeah.
What did
I've
you
walked
do,
in and been like, something's not quite right here. I'm not like sat down and carried on watching. I've realised the error of my ways, but then yeah, I have done that.
I went to see, I think it was when Orange Wednesdays were brand new.
Oh,
So
yeah.
me and my cousin went to see Harry Potter, whichever one it was, I don't know. There was fuck all else on. And we went, sat down, and like the film started, and I'm like, oh, this isn't Harry Potter. And it was 50 First Dates,
Oh, wow.
the Adam Sandler, Drew Barrymore film. Fuck it, we just sat there and watched the whole film, and actually I quite enjoyed it in the end.
Apart from my Adam Sandler rant last week or 2 weeks ago, I don't mind that one. That one's okay.
That's one of his better ones. That and Wedding Singer are two of his better comedies, I feel. I don't know, it's just something about Drew Barrymore, maybe it just reins him in a little bit. And
Well, I guess that leads us on quite nicely to my question, the last question of the evening. I want to know, what do you want rebooting? So I can give you the magic wand and at a limited budget, you can have anything rebooting, but my only caveat is it can't have already have been rebooted. So it could have had sequels, but I'll give you the creative license here. It can't have already have been rebooted. Stu.
Oh no, this is kind of because it hasn't technically. There was a film that came out that I was really excited for when I saw the trailer for it, and you think of all the stars that are in it. The League of Extraordinary Gentlemen.
Oh yes. Okay.
2003, incredibly. You look at that cast that they had and the idea behind it, and it's almost because I know the answer is probably going to be no, but if you play The Order 1886 on PS4, it's only about 6 hours long, but it was based same kind of thing, almost like steampunk alternative reality London, with werewolves and vampires and stuff like that. And it was a really cool idea, but again, it was badly done. And like that film, I think I watched it about 5 years ago, and it's just shit. But the idea behind it is excellent, and they could break it off. And I know that there was ideas behind doing the monster films and bringing them back. And did it even happen in the end? Did they even get anywhere near to doing that? But that whole steampunk Victorian London with werewolves, monsters, creatures, it was an excellent idea. But it was just really badly done at the time as well in 2003. And it's been long enough. Bring it back.
I think that's a good shout because, like you said, there's like if you've got the source material, which is just excellent, that comic book series is brilliant. So there's enough there that they could have made a really, really good film. But I think there was infighting between the director and Sean Connery, if I remember correctly. But that's a good call, and that's one that I thought of. Annoyingly, most of the ones I've thought of have already been rebooted. So, like Spider-Man, because we don't have enough Spider-Man. I really thought of Little Shop of Horrors, but that obviously the musical version was a reboot of the original version. But I think if you could have done a reboot of the original that wasn't a musical, that is just a flat-out horror movie, I thought that could have been really cool. But obviously that goes against Matt's rules.
It does.
Yeah. So it's such a tough choice. I mean, there's that many films. Like
I thought maybe New Mutants, because there's something there that could have been brilliant, but really that just needs re-editing. And the same with Suicide Squad. But hopefully, the Suicide Squad, which is due out soon, should be a reboot effectively, or replacing what's already gone on. So I don't quite know what I would want to be the big reboot, because most of the great films that I like have already had that one bite of the cherry. So it's a tough choice. I'd quite like a nostalgia. I say nostalgia. I'd like a view of rebooting the original Superman, and not the sequel that was the Superman Returns, but a classic, clean-cut version of Clark Kent, very much in the mould of Christopher Reeve. I'd like to see where that could go and take it further, so when you have more storylines and it's not just about him versus Lex Luthor. We now live in an age where actually you could probably bring in someone like Brainiac, and like the Man of Steel films, I don't see as a reboot to Superman. It's a complete different film. It's almost in a different genre now, because comic book films now are a complete different beast to what they were in the 70s and 80s. So I'd probably say a classic version of Superman would be my pick for a reboot.
Excellent.
I thought you were going to go and attack my bow there. I thought you were going to say Transformers.
Well, I mean, I did think about it, but I don't know. Is that in the works? Because is Michael Bay finally leaving? Are we going to get something else?
Hopefully not. I mean, Bumblebee was kind of like a soft reboot, but it's still in this whole continuity, which makes no sense anyway. But it's still part of that whole thing. So
I did think
if it happens, you're going to be leaving it a good 10 years or so before anything happens.
I think so. I did think Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles, but rebooting the original, so you've got people in costumes, not that CG monstrosity that was actually released as well. I thought, there's something there, but I think everything where there's a good seed, they've tried to reboot it already. What about yourself, Matt? What were you thinking?
Well, there's a couple, to be fair. One had already sort of been tried but canned, but that would be The Crow. Now, I mentioned it when we did the comic book films the other day. I'd really like to see what they could do with The Crow with modern technology. My fear would be that they would, for our American audience, PG-13 it, as opposed to give it the gritty edge that it needs, really, to be as close to the source material as possible. I'd love to see a reboot of Gremlins.
Oh, come on!
Because
they've spoke about doing that so many times, or at least doing a third and completing the trilogy. I'm amazed they haven't got around to it. That's a top shout, that is.
Stu,
it does need it.
Give me a rebuttal. What was that outburst for?
Just leave it alone. That one doesn't need touching whatsoever.
No, he doesn't need touch. He doesn't need to. But come on, just think what they can do now with that. I love those films, and we're talking about nostalgia. It's got to be, Gremlins is up there as one of the most nostalgic for me, and I'd just love to see what they could do with it going forward. And
I don't think it'll work with CG though, but I think that's part of the charm of it. And that's exactly what they'd do to it.
Do you think?
They wouldn't do it practical. It would cost too much.
Maybe.
Yeah, true. But it'd be good. I mean, it'd be nice if we could get more films with like the Jim Henson Workshop involved.
Yeah. So
you could get those classics, or that classic feel of having practical effects rather than it just being CG all the time.
Like the Dark Crystal series on Netflix.
Yeah.
I think there's a real appetite for me, at least, to have a rebooted American Werewolf in London as well, because I bloody love that film, and I think they could do a really, really good job of the effects at the time, because we're so far removed from that film, look pretty shambolic. But speaking to people who watched that film when it came out, talked about how terrifying it was and how just unbelievable this film was to them, and I'd like to see how they translated that to us in the modern day with modern effects as well.
Have you seen the sequel to that?
In Paris?
Yeah.
No, I haven't seen it now.
No.
Because me and Dean went to watch that at the cinema when obviously we were way too young to watch it when it came out. and because he looked like a 40-year-old man when we were 12, it was fine. But I remember thinking that because they'd made a whole thing about the transformation scene in the first one before that came out, and if you watch the transformation scene in the Paris film, it probably still looks decent now compared to the original, because they'd spent a lot of money on that scene to kind of recapture it a bit.
What about? Sorry, carry on, Matt.
No. I was just saying. I was just thinking back, actually, flipping the question on its head a little bit, and thinking about what some of the best reboots are that there have been. And for me, I can't get past how good the new Of the Apes series is, whatever that would be. You know, whichever title of it you want to use. Just how good those films are. They really, really grabbed me when those came out, because I really didn't like any of the kind of pre Rise of the Planet of the Apes or anything like that series. It just didn't do anything for me.
Shut your mouth.
I'm sorry, mate. It's just the effects on them. They just look terrible. I think this is just a generational thing.
I mean, to be fair, I watched them. Fuck you. I watched them about 5 years ago. I watched the whole 5 or 6, the original. I didn't watch the Tim Burton one again because I saw it once and that was bad enough. And yeah, the effects aren't brilliant, but the storyline's good enough to pull you through.
That's fair.
And I think that helps with it. But yeah, the reboot is phenomenal. And I assume they're going to leave it where they are because it does now lead straight into the original setup. But I would be quite happy for them to continue that and do more films in that vein. I think it'd be really good.
There's a game on PS4 and Xbox that is in the same universe, if you want to carry the story on.
Oh, okay. Right.
It's a bit like the Telltale Walking Dead games.
Okay. What do we think about the live-action Disney remakes? Have we seen many of these? I mean, for myself, so far I've seen The Lion King and Jungle Book.
Those are the two I've seen. No, and I've seen Beauty and the Beast as well.
I like Beauty and the Beast, though. I thought that was really good. Yeah,
it was okay. It's not my bag to begin with, but the wife loved it, thought it was fantastic. I thought the Jungle Book was up there as like one of the best reboots of a source material I've ever seen. I thought it was fantastic. I thought it was amazing. Really, really enjoyed it. Lion King, I'm gonna really mark my name now, but I'd seen Lion King once, and I think I was about 5 years old, and I hadn't seen it since. So this was almost like seeing the original for me, seeing the live action one. It was okay. It didn't really grab me, and I think, again, you want to talk nostalgia. I think that's probably why. I think that you'd appreciate it a lot more if you're a bigger fan of the original material.
Probably. I really didn't like the Lion King remake. I thought it was terrible. I couldn't get over the fact that they looked like real lions, but they were talking. Like, I don't know who this is made for. Just give me the original animated film. It doesn't need this. And I think sometimes they do fall down this trap of we can, so we will. I didn't think that was particularly needed. Dumbo, have either of you seen the remake of that? I've heard bad things about it, but it is Tim Burton, so there's a good chance.
No, the only ones I've watched is Beauty and the Beast and Jungle Book, because I don't want to watch them. There's no point.
No, same.
And the Lion King especially, because I've got it on 3D Blu-ray, and converting a film from mid-90s, an animated 90s film, into 3D should never work, and it makes it look brand new. And that's good enough for me. If you want to be gimmicky, do that. But it's just, it's perfect. It's perfect in every way. There's no need to touch it.
That's completely fair, to be honest.
What console was it that had that Lion King side-scrolling game on? Was that the Mega Drive?
Mega Drive, I think. Yeah, I had that.
Is that out again now? I know they did the Aladdin. Yeah, it is.
Yeah.
I'm sure you can. That's on your. If you go on your, or it's PlayStation exclusive again.
I think it's PlayStation exclusive because I bought the DuckTales one that they did with DuckTales and the 2 Chip and Dale games.
Yeah.
And then they did the Disney film games as well.
Yeah. You just need to buy one, Matt. Just join us.
What do we think about when films are remade for an English-speaking audience? Fine. So obviously stuff like Old Boy for example. Does it need a remake? Should we just accept it in its original format?
I think it's got an audience because not everyone is gonna sit there either watching a dub or read subtitles, are they? So it's for lazy people. That's what it's for lazy, stupid Westerners who don't want to watch things like The Ring properly and things like that. But again, they've got an audience, don't they? And people watch them. So, there's some things like that where with the American, or was it an English remake of the Bridge, the Swedish drama, the series that turned into The Tunnel.
Yes, the one with fucking hell, the Stannis Baratheon in. Yeah, it's a really, really good series. That is, yeah. I'd never known of the original. Matt, if a film gets released in English language, would you be more inclined to see it, or would you?
No, I don't. I don't think
does
so.
Does it make any
no.
difference?
No, I don't think so. But then again, I'm the kind of person who this is probably like sacrilege here and a cardinal sin. But sometimes I'll just have a film with subtitles on anyway, just for shits and giggles. Anyway, just in case, like if so. No, I haven't really don't have a problem with subtitled films anyway, and I don't want to see remakes of them. I'm glad that the Hunger Games nixed the plans for a remake of Battle Royale, for example. One of my favourite films of all time ever, Life is Beautiful. I'd hate it if they tried to capture that as a remake and try and do it for an English speaking audience. I think it would be awful. And things like Old Boy, if they ever, I don't believe they've ever tried to do Itchy the Killer, or as a remake of that. No, not for me, because they're made with the cultural impacts of the places that they're from, and you're never going to be able to recapture the original source material in the same way that the original director would have wanted to do it in the same way. No, leave it alone. Do a cheap imitation, but don't do a remake.
Have you seen the remake of Old Boy? As you've mentioned it.
Yeah, I've seen it. I wasn't overly enamored by it.
No, I like Spike Lee, so I haven't seen it purely because the original's so good. I think it just doesn't feel like it was completely necessary in the slightest. But I have just read that our beloved Nick Cage was in a remake that we've watched already, which is City of Angels. Apparently it's based on a 1987 German film called Wings of Desire. Which has got an 8 out of 10 on IMDb and a 98% on Rotten Tomatoes. Like, I might try and dig this film out now just to see how it stacks up against those horrendous fucking scripts we were made to fit together.
Should we try and get like a listener total or some kind of like reply total? If you get enough, we'll do a bonus episode on Wings of Desire.
Excellent. Yeah.
Well, look at things like I mentioned at the start of when we started doing this podcast, the 365 Gin on Netflix, the Polish erotic drama.
Oh yeah.
You couldn't possibly remake that in any. Well, I know it's largely in English anyway, and it's kind of half and half, but you couldn't remake that anywhere. It's very unique in its own way.
Right. Okay.
And
I think sometimes it does. Like it did feel like Old Boy was very much. It needed to be in Japan. It was a lot about the culture there, so I can't imagine that was transposed very well at all.
Yeah, you lose something when you change it around. But again, I said, doing that, you don't have to watch the remake. If you want to watch it, the original and watch it properly, watch the original, watch it with subtitles. But if it broadens the audience to people who are too lazy to do that or just don't want to do that, then I ain't got a problem with it.
Well, listen to this, right? About I don't want to ruin it for anybody that may go and watch it, but some of the reviews of the remake of Old Boy, and this is my fear for any of these kind of things in the first place. One review: suitably grim and bloody, yet disappointingly safe and shallow. Sorry, I should say. So again, you know what I mean. And then we've got another one here: The Revenge in Old Boy is neither sweet nor sour; it's just drab. And I just don't think directors will be able to grab the same feelings that because foreign film is so unusual to us because the styles are so different. They grab you in a different way than if like a Western, you might want to say, director does it. And I just don't think that they have the same limitations aren't there for some foreign directors. Just leave it alone, please. That's all I ask.
I think you might see a change now with what was it called? Parasite winning stuff.
Yeah.
Which I still haven't seen it, just because I ain't got around to it. But for that winning things, and you think, you people actually can watch foreign films and not be geeks about it, then maybe that'll change things.
I think a big issue with the transposing these films from their native to, let's be honest, it's usually Hollywood. It's the studio interference. So, that Spike Lee is a more than competent director, and given the right script, he's going to make a brilliant film. So, Old Boy being moved to the States should theoretically work with the right director.
True, yeah.
But I can't imagine a studio would be happy and give him the sort of free rein needed to eat a live squid and that sort of thing, and have the whole incest storyline that comes with it without them trying to sanitize it in some way. So I think that does play a big role in it.
That's fair.
Maybe now that Netflix is a bigger player in this game, that they do seem to afford creators a bit more freedom. Maybe that might make some difference in the future.
Yeah, exactly. Good point.
I mean, why is Emmanuel not been remade?
Or Confessions of a Window Cleaner.
Randy Robin Asquith.
Yeah.
Do you know what? Have you ever seen a Robin Asquith film, Matt?
I don't believe I have.
Oh, you're missing out. This, for our American friends, look up the Confessions films somehow. They are.
See if you can find him there.
You ain't going to get more British. Yeah, more 70s British than them.
Confessions of a Window Cleaner was a 1974 British sex comedy film.
They used to be called bawdy comedies. BAWY. Bawdy comedies.
What am I watching here? What is this?
It's a bit like, I suppose, Carry On, but taken to the next level. Almost.
Dear me.
I imagine they appeal to a specific kind of human being.
And from that, Stu, goodbye, Stu.
Yeah, I know. That was a very thinly veiled dig, wasn't it?
I think I've watched them all of the Taxi Driver, Driving Instructor. Or was it the same one? I can't remember. It's been a while. I'm gonna have to deep dive these now.
You're just listing the fake Taxi episodes, aren't you?
Exactly. If there was no Confessions film, there wouldn't be no fake Taxi. In this next clip, we've got our long-term collaborator David Evans making a cameo appearance. It's weird saying cameo appearance because Dave was the reason that the three of us know each other in the first place, and without him recruiting me and then Andy and Matt to the Wolves fancast, we'd have never met. Obviously, as you've gathered from these podcasts over the last couple of years, we are very different people, and other than our love of Wolves, have very little in common. But yes, Dave recruited us, put us together, and I think we'd only actually been on a few podcasts before we did our film cast in the first place, so having Dave on's always a joy, and as you'll see here. But then we do get slightly emotional because it's one last question and it's time to cry.
So I want to know, what's your favourite cameo in a film? Now, this could be either a character that pops up, or I'm looking more of a kind of the actress, but they could be popping up as a character, or they could just be themselves. So, what's your favourite cameo in a film?
I've gone for one of each. So my favourite cameo where they're playing themselves, that would be Bill Murray in Zombieland. Like, it's just a whopper of a cameo. And have I stole Stu's thunder again? It's brilliant. You don't expect it. I know they mention him a couple of times throughout the film because Woody Harrelson's character is a fan, and then they go to his house, and he just comes out of nowhere, just completely destroys the fucking camera because he's so funny. and then he's gone in the blink of an eye, and it's excellent. And the other one I really like is Christopher Walken's in Pulp Fiction. So he comes in as Captain Kuntz, and he explains to the young kid about his father's watch that he smuggled out of Vietnam because his father died in a prisoner of war camp, and he had to smuggle it out up his asshole. And he's just explaining to this small boy about shoving it up his bum, and it just really tickles me. And it's obviously not a comedy because it's Pulp Fiction, for crying out loud. But those are the two that came to my mind. I'm sorry, Stu.
Well, it's again, we've kind of got used to this now and done a few answers because of this happening all the time. But one that, just because it was completely out of the blue, Samuel L. Jackson at the end of Iron Man.
Yeah.
No one, apart from lunatics who appreciate the art, stay till the very end, especially at that time when nothing came at the end of films. And I don't even know why we did it for that one, but we did. And then that came on, and we hadn't heard about it beforehand. We didn't know that obviously it was him in it, but it was just a shock. And you think, hang on a minute, this is going to be linked. And then it was just magical for the time. But that, and the other one, other than the one you just stole, Tom Cruise in Tropic Thunder.
Yes.
Completely. I know it's not really a cameo because he has got a kind of decent role in it in the end, but it's just a shock because you don't see him in any of the promotional stuff. He's not mentioned beforehand, and then he's there on his kind of throne in the middle of the jungle. But yeah, when you said the questions, then with the three that came to mind straight away.
Yeah, Matt.
So I've gone for three, really. Not really a cameo playing himself, but I just had to throw it in. So Dave, I might steal your thunder here. Hulk Hogan as Thunderlips in Rocky 3. It's just because this was before Hulk Hogan was the superstar kind of babyface at the time, I believe. So he was kind of getting into that role. And the only reason I enjoy it so much is because whenever I'm like wearing something really garish or a wool shirt or something like that, and my wife says to me, "Are you really wearing that?" my only ever reply is, "Thunderlips in the flesh, baby." It's just always my answer. And I don't know why, because I just find it, because Thunderlips obviously loves himself so much, and so do I. In terms of seriousness, well, not seriousness actually. Lou Ferrigno in "I Love You, Man." When basically Paul Rudd's character is trying to sell Lou Ferrigno's palatial estate, and he's just really funny in it. There's a really funny line where is it Jason Segel? Have I got the right guy there? He's trying to fight Lou Ferrigno because he just shouts, "Fuck you, Hulk!" and he puts him in a sleeper hold, and he's just really doesn't take himself too seriously, allows himself to be taken the piss out of a little bit, and that's the best kind of cameo, really, where an actor doesn't take himself too seriously, which is similar to my third choice, which is actually Eminem in The Interview. He comes in this interview where essentially he comes out with the fact really flippantly that he's gay. And for a rapper that is obviously massively been controversial for like homophobic slurs in his art, for him to come out with this was just a real kind of, it just made me smile, massively made me smile. He does it so deadpan, and then the reaction, the really hysterical reaction that the media puts on this, and some of like the headlines that they throw up really, really quickly. It was just really funny, really, really made me laugh. So yeah, Eminem in The Interview as well was a great cameo for me. What about you, Dave?
So I've gone for two of the same actor, and I've gone for Matt Damon for a couple of different reasons. So Matt Damon's cameo in Interstellar, because it was one of those moments when he kind of comes out of the cryo chamber, you're like, "Oh, that's Matt Damon," and he plays such a big role in the film, but it was never advertised whatsoever. Yeah. So that was quite a big shock, and to see that that he had a good substantial part in the film, and it wasn't kind of made clear that he was in it. The other one is him and Sam Neill's cameo in Thor Ragnarok, where they're reenacting Loki's death from the second film in the kind of little play. And that was, again, a really nice surprise, really fun. I think Matt Damon is Loki in that, isn't he? And Sam Neill is Odin. But yeah, that was a really nice twist, and that was a typical Wahiti kind of comedic kind of line and use there in that film. But yeah, I love both of those. Have been a kind of classic kind of cameos that I've loved in recent years.
Oh, excellent. Matt Damon's got a really good cameo in Jay and Silent Bob Strike Back.
Yeah.
Because he's been in a few of those films anyway, but he then appears as himself. Him and Ben Affleck both do. It's really good fun, that is. But that's very niche films. They're the View Askew universe ones.
Yeah, I think going from silly things, the complete opposite of silly things. Well, depends which way you take it. My question this week was going to be, what was the last film that made you cry? Andrew?
Right, okay.
Here we go.
I know. I cry at films all the time. I'm terrible for it. I'm quite a stony person, generally speaking, but if I'm watching a film, I blubber. So, as ever, I've answered it by giving a couple of examples. When I watch Marriage Story at Christmas time, it absolutely destroyed me. I couldn't tell you many films which have made me just break down, but Marriage Story reduced me to bits. The performance from Adam Driver was, I'll be honest, this is a hill I will die on. He should have won the Oscar this year. It shouldn't have been Joaquin Phoenix. It should have been Adam Driver for that performance. Because the way he showed the bare bones of a human being who had been taken to his edge during his divorce from Scarlett Johansson's character, it was devastating. And I got all the way through the film, and then right at the very end, I was just in bits. For like a good half an hour or so, I couldn't hack it. It broke me mentally. That wasn't the last film, because I think I watched that the day before I went to see Little Women, which I saw at the cinema. And there's the bit where, spoiler alert, but Beth dies, and I didn't realise that she dies. And it's so sad. And I was just wiping a tear away from the corner of my eye, and this woman had brought a baby into the screening. So this baby interrupted my crying by crying, and it really pissed me off. I was not happy. And the final film I was going to mention, it's a film that always devastates me, and it's My Girl. I mean, it's a 29-year-old film. I saw it at the cinema when I was 8 years old, and it broke my heart then. And it was on Channel 5 not that long ago. And as I was flicking through the channels, it landed on My Girl in the funeral scene. I hadn't seen the rest of the film or anything. I knew exactly what was going on. And I broke down because My Girl gets me every single time. It's incredible. What about you, Matt?
Okay, we're going to go from the ridiculous to the serious here. But one thing, and I'm not saying it makes me cry, I just want to say one thing that makes me sad, not cry. So I'm going to put the disclaimer out there right now. Oh, dear. Being the ultimate disaster movie. Man, when that family shunned Bean, I'm telling you, Rowan Atkinson deserves some kind of plaudit, because he, for a ridiculous character, he's really sad. It's properly sad. Like they just, he's just left on his own, and he's this strange man in a strange land that doesn't understand, the cultures, and he's just left on his own. And I just think to myself, man, imagine if that was you. It'd just be really sad. But there we go. Now back to the legitimate. A TV show I want to just shoehorn in. The Queen of Sheba episode of the Royal Family. So through all of the Royal Family, this is one of the later episodes. You've got Jim and his mother-in-law, who are really, I wouldn't say hate each other, but they're backwards and forwards, always bickering, always arguing. And the Queen of Sheba, I mean, it's been out years now, so I'm not going to feel bad about spoiler alerts, but it's basically the story of the nan of the family passing away. And having kind of been through a very similar scenario where, in my own real life, where my nan had deteriorated over time, and you say your goodbyes in the hospital before she passes away. If I watch that, guaranteed tears all over the place. Like it takes quite a bit for me to get emotional in a film, but this show, it's awful, and I think it's encapsulated by they do a point of view shot from the nan with all of the cast saying their goodbyes, pretty much. And it's really sad because these are characters for the whole show. All we do is ridicule them for how kind of dumb they are. We don't really get real emotion out of them that isn't something that's comedic. And then we see this, and it absolutely breaks me every time. Really, really, really. Like it's so bittersweet because it's for me a really funny program, but that episode just breaks me. Film wise, I think the last film that really made me cry was The Pursuit of Happiness, Will Smith. When he's in the toilets and someone's banging on the door and he's got nowhere to take his son, he just really hit home for me. I don't know. I think I said it on either the first or second podcast. All the best cowboys have daddy issues. Is like a phrase. Well, it's an episode of a Lost episode, believe it or not. But it's just that father-son relationship thing, for whatever reason, really hit me. And I just felt so sorry for Will Smith's character in that, just thinking that he must be verging on suicidal in not being able to provide for his own son and being in these conditions. And it just really, really hit me. And I just, it was an uncomfortable watch. It still is an uncomfortable watch, and it gets me as well. But yeah, there you go. From the ridiculous to Will Smith and back.
I do like Will Smith. I think he's an underrated actor.
Yeah.
I mean, he's obviously known for being his big, outlandish characters. But, you know, in films like Pursuit of Happiness and also his performance in Concussion, I think that is such a good, powerful performance from him. And I don't think he gets the respect that he's due in doing these more sort of these quieter roles as he does sort of doing like when he's in Independence Day or the Bad Boys films.
Yeah, it's a shame that he'll get kind of lumbered into those roles and not be taken a bit more seriously as an actor. But performances in these roles shows a bit of depth that you might overlook. But yeah, Pursuit of Happiness for me. Yeah, get the tissues ready.
In mine would, as you expect, slightly different.
Listen, Stu, Transformers is not a sad film, mate. I just want to put that out there.
As I say, it's a spoiler, but when Prime goes down that first time, it's actually on the net. But now that there was every year when the music in Home Alone at the end, the actual score kicks in at the end of the film, and it's always like oh. But on a similar note, Claws, the Netflix Christmas film from last year.
Yeah,
100%.
Yeah.
It was. I was so surprised. I mean, I know it had been hyped up all year end that Netflix were doing these things. I mean, J.K. Simmons, Rashida Jones, and John Schwartzman, and it's incredible. I mean, we obviously not go into it. Just watch it. This Christmas or October when it is officially Christmas anyway. About a postman who gets sent to the North Pole, and it's like the birth of Santa and all this stuff. But it's just a really, really emotional, really, really lovely film. And the other one was Dunkirk. And I know I think it might have been about the whole experience about just watching that me and my brother watching it, and it was a completely dead cinema. Everyone was completely silent from start to finish. And I mean, when we found out later that a lot of it was improvised as well, and it wasn't really scripted. And it was been a Nolan film as well. Obviously, that's the reason we went. And it was just one of them where there's just things that happen towards the end where it's just really got us. I mean, both of us. I mean, we didn't speak to each other at all until we got back to the car. It was just it finished. Everyone sat in the seats. Obviously, there was going to be no end credit scene, but everyone just sat there, like pure respect for the film, and then just got up and left, and no one said a word. And it was just really powerful. And I don't know if that's going to stand by and stand up when I watch it again on VOD or Blu-ray or whatever. But for that moment we were in, that was special.
Yeah, that's nice. That's like when something hits you like that you can't form a sentence, or you just can't say anything, and almost out of respect for the film, I don't know. But you know, when something hits you like that, it is strange. It's that question really, like why do we go to cinema? To get scared, or to cry, or hear, you know, or feel these horrible emotions? Like why do we put ourselves through the misery of it? But when you get that film, it is magical, isn't it?
Yeah,
it really is. I think the last film that I saw that did that was 12 Years a Slave.
Oh,
I remember watching it and then just sitting there thinking a million different thoughts of how on earth did this happen and why are we so shitty to each other?
Yeah.
And honestly, that film just broke me. It felt like it was something that would change you fundamentally if you saw it, because it was just so powerful.
Or not 7 Years a Slave, as the barber told me, which must have been a produced, an edited version of it. A film like that.
version.
Yeah.
a film like that for me, to be fair, was when Four Lions, when at the end of Four Lions, I honestly didn't know what to feel in the cinema, because I saw it in the cinema when it was released, and I just didn't know what to feel. I thought like, oh, there's a punchline coming here somewhere, there's a gag coming here somewhere, and I just didn't know what to feel. It was so strange. It was like, and I've watched it since, and it doesn't quite have the same effect, because I know what's happening, kind of the Lucky Number 11 effect. But it was just yeah. When those films hit you, they hit you hard. But I suppose that's why we really enjoy it, isn't it? To feel the wide range of the spectrum of emotions, isn't it?
It is. I think it's a way of experiencing things, but in a sanitized way. It's like there's no way that you can experience horror in a safe way, is that? I mean, if you're out in the streets and you feel in danger, you're in danger. If you feel it in a cinema, you're still safe, but you're experiencing that anxiety, but in a safe way, really. So I think that's part of why we go to the cinema. That's part of why we watch films like ridiculous horror films that scare the shit out of you, is so that you can experience it, but know that at the end of it all, you're going to be safe.
Yeah. Or do what I do and just be like, yeah, I'm just gonna grab do you want a drink from the kitchen or whatever? Yeah.
Just need to put the light on for a minute. So
just make sure the door's locked. Yeah, no worries.
Well, the only time I've ever done that, it was on a TV show. I was watching the X-Files, and there's the episode with Eugene Toombs who can creep through letterboxes, and I actually had to check the letterbox after that episode. Yeah, it probably got me, that one did.
My sister, because she had an air vent in her bedroom, and we had to cover it up. Mum had to cover it up because she watched it. I mean, that was in the first series as well, and so that was 94.
Yeah.
So she would have only been about 4 or 5, and which obviously at that time only having one telly in the house, so she was downstairs and we was watching it, and it probably scared the shit out of her. And even though it's that Eugene Victor Toombs to us, shut up. Or the second episode, Squeeze, which came later on. But yeah, that was for a small child. That The Fly got me like that as well. When I watched The Fly when I was 9.
That is too young to watch The Fly, to be honest.
Obviously the Jeff Goldblum version. But I had to sleep in Mum's bed at the bottom of the bed for 3 months, so I was traumatized. And I wouldn't go in anywhere like when she had a separate toilet and bathroom rooms, and because it was a small enclosed space like a teleporter, I wouldn't go in there with the door shut.
That's funny.
That's fantastic.
Awesome. The power of film.
So that's us done for another week. It was great to listen back to some of our old questions, and genuinely, like 2 or nearly 3 years on from this podcast, I've probably got some different answers that I'd have given. Listen, I know I say it every week, but we do genuinely appreciate that your time each and every week for listening to us 3 weirdos talk about something we love. So just thank you for being there. We do appreciate you. Please make sure you're subscribed on whatever podcatcher you're listening to, and make sure you've got us on the socials at Cage Fighting Pod. And also, if you want to send us an email, we are open for business there too. cagefightingpod@gmail.com. Stu and Matt send their love, and big love from me. And remember, be excellent to each other.
I said it before and I'll say it again. Life moves pretty fast. You don't stop and look around once in a while, you could miss it.